It's been announced that Spitfires will be flying from Southampton Airport to celebrate their 80th anniversary. Initially, there had been widespread disappointment that the reenactment of the first flight of the Spitfire wouldn't be going ahead. So the Solent Sky Museum made plans of their own to celebrate that anniversary. They'll be holding a reception in the museum on Saturday, the 5th of March, and they're calling for your Second World War stories to be retold so the memories can be recorded for posterity.
What we propose to do is to invite along members of the public that would like to come and tell us their story about the war days, but in particular the dispersal of the Spitfire throughout Southampton and the area. It's a golden opportunity to put this on the record. We're going to have 2 camera crews and sound people here to interview people. Everybody is welcome, and we're going to make it a fun day. Hopefully there will be people here serving wartime food. We've got military vehicles. We're bringing a big 3.7 anti-aircraft gun in, which was one that defended Southampton, and we are looking for people who've got interesting stories to tell. Not just the Spitfire, but what it was like to be here when you were being bombed. We've got a number of stories already. We've had one gentleman, for instance, that was quite small, only a child, and actually saw the factory burning at Woolston because he just saw this great orange glow in the distance. But 1 or 2 people that were in the docks when it was very badly bombed.
Not only home to over 20 vintage aircraft, including flying boats, jet fighters and, of course, the Spitfire, Solent Sky Museum also holds a host of artefacts in their archive. Our reporter Shan Robbins went along to Southampton to find out more.
Funded entirely by charitable donations and previously known as the Southampton Hall of Aviation, the Solent Sky Museum depicts the history of aviation locally.
The museum, the aircraft museum, are the cornerstones of this fascinating story of Solent aviation, and the exhibits we've got here have been here a long time, but we do rotate those. We do bring some stuff out of the archive, but very often it's quite difficult to display that. But it's all available for research purposes, and we get people from all over the world wanting to see it.
So, for the purposes of our research on your behalf, they brought from the archive some items relating to the Spitfire and to R.J. Mitchell, its designer.
This here is R.J. Mitchell's cigarette case. It's a silver cigarette case, it's monogrammed, and this almost certainly he'd have had with him. He was a heavy smoker. He would have had this on the day that the Spitfire first flew, and you can well imagine him opening this up, taking a cigarette out and giving it to the crew and saying, wow, what a successful flight. That's the cigarette case. It has a sequel to this story because in actual fact we had a very serious break-in in the museum, and this was stolen. Remarkably, because of the amount of publicity and what this meant, either the thief or his accomplice sent it back to us, which was absolutely remarkable, and we didn't lose it, which was really quite something. A little bit about the Spitfire, the first Spitfire that flew. What's quite interesting is that there's nothing remains of the aircraft except for one thing. The aircraft, that was K5054, on the outbreak of war was taken to Farnborough and was, when it landed, crashed, unfortunately killing the pilot. 2 apprentices were asked to carry out a project, and that was dismantle that original aeroplane and dispose of it, scrap it basically. But what was quite interesting was that high tensile steel was very, very rare and very expensive, and the pins that held the wing together were made of high tensile steel. So apprentices looking to get tools, etc., decided to turn one of the pins into a hammer, and that head on that hammer has actually been machined out of one of the high tensile bolts of the very first Spitfire, and we believe is probably the only part of that aeroplane that still remains. You know, one could say, well, okay, how on earth do we know this is true? Well, actually, the apprentice that made it brought it to us, and he verifies that actually happened. And I can assure you that we checked up. He was there at the time. It's genuine.
Solent Sky Museum also have a great many drawings and plans from Supermarine, the manufacturer of the Spitfire.
Interestingly, we have some which have been drawn by Mitchell himself, and one of the drawings we have is of the centre section of the Spitfire, the main spar, which is really very unusual. As you can see, it's made of a number of sections put together, and he designed this to get the strength into the main spar. Now we have the drawings and his sketches of how he achieved this.
This is Shan Robbins for That's Solent.